Hey everybody, this is Wildman, and we are looking at the sea mammals part of Brookfield Zoo. This is episode 8 in this series that I'm doing, and it's going to be a little bit more jumping around the zoo map to kind of talk about the different areas where aquatic or sea animals are residing in the zoo. And it's also changed over the years quite a bit, so we'll kind of talk about that as we go through everything. But I'm initially going to zoom into the far southwest corner of the zoo here, and this is where historically the sea animals were originally living in the zoo. It's something different right now, but it's in the same area, and we'll cover that in a little while. But as you could see on the original plot of the zoo, this area is relatively open. It has in there, it says pheasants and cranes and ostriches, but basically this area was an open area that eventually had some sea mammals in that area. So basically in 1961, they opened an area called the Seven Seas Panorama. And this building was the first inland, dolphin enclosure, or dolphin aquarium, I think it might have been called. And it was basically an interior tank where dolphins lived and where some shows were put on multiple times during the day for guests of the zoo. This area also had a few outside pools where there were sea lions that were residents of the zoo, and there was another area, another pool that contained an Atlantic walrus. And this walrus came to the zoo in 1962, a year after this area was open. And the walrus name was Olga. And Olga became a very popular animal in the zoo. And many people went to the zoo just to see Olga. She would entertain them with different antics, and also did some tricks that the trainers and zookeepers had trained her to do. She also did, I think, move into the new Seven Seas area, which we'll talk about as well, but passed away just due to old age shortly after that. But in the beginning of this episode, I had a opening photo, and that's now a large bronze statue of Olga that basically, commemorates her life at the zoo. Again, going back inside the Seven Seas Panorama building, there was a number of shows that were put on throughout the day where dolphins did some tricks and were shown some habitual type maneuvers that the trainers worked with them on for the guests' viewing pleasure. After a number of years, this building was removed and basically rebuilt as a more modern facility in the upper northeast corner of the zoo, which we'll look at in a minute. But this area where the original Seven Seas was located had a new exhibit built called the Living Coast. And basically what this was a little bit of an aquarium / marine animal type exhibit now. So the inside had a number of aquarium fish tanks with jellyfish, some other ocean fish, and a lot of information about tides and ecological type things with the ocean. But the kind of main showcase of this exhibit is a large glass domed enclosure where there's a number of penguins living, and you could also through a back viewing area see some of the nesting tunnels or nesting caves for the penguins as well. Not sure if anybody listening to this has ever been to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, but it's kind of clear the zoo tried to imitate what the Monterey Bay Aquarium did in a very, very, much smaller scale as far as some of the exhibits within this building. Outside this exhibit, there's a little bit of a courtyard with some architectural type columns that create a little courtyard area. And this area is called the South American Marketplace. It has a shop with some South America themed type merchandise. And there's also a restaurant in this building with some South American flair, I guess, on the menu items of the restaurant. Jumping up to the northeast corner of the zoo is where the new Seven Seas Panorama resides. This building was built and then opened up in 1987. It's much larger than the original building, way more advanced as far as technology and capability and living quarters for the dolphins. And the show that they put on here now, again, has some tricks, but it's, again, more leaned towards, I believe, like talking about natural behaviors that dolphins would perform in the wild. And, unfortunately, I couldn't find a good picture of this building online anywhere, so I just have a couple interior shots that I'm showing here. But the outside is very square and modern looking compared to that round spaceship type look building that the original Seven Seas building looked like. Outside the Seven Seas area, there's also a little rocky kind of Pacific Coast type looking environment, and it's called Pinniped Point. And this is now where different seals reside. It's where where Olga did reside for a short period. But I believe right now there's just a number of different seal varieties that live in this area. Again, it has some nice underwater viewing areas, as well as kind of, like I said, like a Pacific Coast pier type theme to the entire area. One of the other sea animal exhibits I just want to touch on briefly here is something that they had called Stingray Bay. It was a stingray pool that was built inside of like a permanently enclosed tent type building, where guests could go in and, I believe, feed and pet stingrays as they swim around the pool. Very similar to what you see in a lot of the SeaWorld type parks. But, either because of it being in the Chicago area, they did have a number of mishaps with this exhibit where a lot of stingrays did not survive. Like, again, not trying to be negative towards the zoo, but I think it was like in 2018, a handful of stingrays died when a heater unit malfunctioned and the water temperatures changed. And then in 2015, like over 50 stingrays were found dead in the exhibit one morning. And I guess the oxygen levels had dropped due to support system malfunctioning. So again, to keep these aquatic animals alive takes a lot of work and a lot of technology. That's really the point I want to make here. But with this particular exhibit, I think with all the troubles they've had with it over the years, they finally decided to no longer have this exhibit open. All right, let's take a look at the future plan of the zoo for the marine or sea animals. And there's really not a lot to talk about here. It's actually pretty simple. But first, let's take a look at what currently exists. So in this corner down here, this is where we have the Living Coast and the South American Marketplace. And the current Seven Seas Panorama building, otherwise known as the Dolphins, is up here. And right off to the side of that right here is the Pennipods. And like I mentioned, right here in this tent in the center of the zoo was the Stingray Bay. So those are really the areas that exist in the zoo today. So let's take an overlay of what the future of the zoo might look like. And again, I'll just point out some very minor things. The pinnipods are still here. It just says that they will renovate the area. It says they're going to renovate the marine building. And it says they're going to add an addition onto the marine building. No specifics of what that addition might be, but it just makes the building larger, maybe to have additional pens or pools for the dolphins. And again, stingrays are gone. It's now just park area. And the living coast area is exactly the same, with one minor changes, that this round courtyard kind of has a chunk taken out of it where they will be adding a train station for a proposed train ride. But other than that, that's it. So we won't spend much more time on this, and we'll move on to the next episode.